us another in our continuing series of Office of Community Engagement and Partnerships Conversations. I'm here with one of our wonderful community partners, Thomas Mantz, of the newly branded Feeding Tampa Bay. He, together with David Himmelgreen, received a Research That Matters grant, and we're really excited about the work that's been happening here. And you are continuing a very broad partnership with USF.
We are. We view the university as a leader in the community across a broad variety of platforms, and one of which, most important, which we've been working with Dr. Himmelgreen on, is research. How do we understand the longer-term implications of hunger in our community? Along with a few other programs, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but that has been one of the main ones. And of course, Dr. Himmelgreen is an active and wonderful board member of our organization as well.
Yes, can you talk a bit about the fact that you are very concerned with having the university involved so that you have this research component, so you don't keep just doing the same thing and not knowing the results?
Well, I think it's important to understand that there are implications to the issue of hunger. I think too often we categorize hunger as simply something that if we just give folks food, we've somehow solved that issue. The reality is that the broader implications of hunger are greater. So whether it's in the life of a child or the life of a senior, I think we need to understand, it's critical that we understand what are the health factors that are occurring as a result of a lack of nutrition, which is the result of a lack of good foods into family homes. So whether it's a child or whether it's a senior, what's happening? Specifically with the grant that Dr. Himmelgreen and you all provided to us, it gives us the ability to look at, we have a specific program that deals with children who are hungry. Is that program effective? Is it meeting the goals that we have for it? Are the children in a better place for us having provided that particular meal? So research lets us know, obviously, if what we're doing is providing the benefit we're looking for.
You made a really interesting distinction. You said we can not necessarily end hunger, but we can provide enough food so that people aren't hungry. Can you explain that a bit more?
Well, and so this is a great debate amongst people who would talk about the issue of hunger in communities. Very often you'll hear the phrase, we want to end hunger. My feeling is that hunger is an outcome of poverty.
Yes.
That when folks don't have enough resource across the whole of their lives, hunger is then inside of the home. But what we can do is we can build a hunger-free community. And what that means is we locate and distribute enough food to everybody who is hungry. So whether that number is here or whether that number is here, we can then source enough food to bring it into families. Poverty may still exist, but we can take care of the hunger issue.
Is that another really important part of involving yourselves with the university, because there are so many disciplines that can kind of bring to bear on this particular issue?
Yes, and so if you look at one of the conversations we're having with you all now is we're looking at partnering with both nutrition and anthropology. So we want to understand what are the nutritional issues that are facing families, how do we educate, how do we create better food source that deal with nutrition issues, but on the anthropology side, what's happening to families and communities as a result of poor nutrition? I think a lot of this information, for most of us, we'd say, well, anecdotally we understand it, or conceptually it makes sense to us, but what the university can help us do is put very specific data around this, that we can then take that data, that understanding, and start to drive program much more specifically. And here, I think most critically, the power of the university drags in its wake a whole lot of other folks and resources that we can start to bring to bear on the broader issue of hunger. So it's not only the specifics of a tactical study, but it's much more the university's ability to say, we're putting our resource behind our investment in the issue of hunger and the study of hunger, and along with that comes an awful lot of opportunity.
I think what we feel really strongly about with these Research That Matters grants is that they're the seed that can really bring with it all other kinds of funding, because we can help to show with research why this particular program was or wasn't successful, and then other funders can get behind it. Have you found that?
Yes, and I think that that's exactly what it does, is it allows us to take this package and say, here's what we thought, here's what we did, here's the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can show you a provable result. And for, I think, any major funding, there's of course charitable giving, critical, but then there's investment.
Mm-hmm.
There is an organization that wants to say, we're interested in healthcare and we view childhood hunger as an issue of healthcare. And we want to invest in that. We want to participate in what is building the long-term solution to providing food to children who are hungry. That's really where research grants start to lift all boats and put us into a much different category with a potential partner.
What about some of the issues of the sustainability and the kind of food that you're providing? I've noticed that I saw a big box of watermelon, which made me really happy to see, because I get frustrated to see Chef Boyardee and not so much of the food that we know is really important for families.
Well, and so certainly we know economically that what we would call the outer ring of a grocery store, where you have all of your most expensive items, are most difficult for our families to purchase. And when they have to stretch a dollar much further, they generally limit their consumption of items that we would consider most healthy.
Yes.
And so when you look at fruits and vegetables, the price point of those may be well beyond what many of our families can afford. The good news is that we can source a lot of that food to abundance. So whether it's out of a farmer's field or whether it's out of a grocery store or other sources, there's more and more fresh, healthy food available to families that need it. And so the good news is that it's there. In the state of Florida, the estimates range between 1 billion and 2 billion pounds of abandoned produce every year. It's a terrific opportunity, though, for us to go out and recover that. The farmers want it. We need it, and then the folks that we're giving it to, it becomes a much healthier solution for them. And so not only is it providing the food, but this is also where we're working with USF. Your nutrition folks are helping us educate our partners to say, here's why healthy food matters, here's what you do with healthy food. You know, a simple example of how to prepare certain particular fruits and vegetables for a family that's not as familiar with them, it can be a significant difference in that family's life.
Yeah. And Adam Putnam at a recent Hunger Relief Forum talked about the fact that Florida has enough food, and it's just a matter of getting it to people. So can you talk about what you need here that would help you be able to achieve that?
To look at you never want these kind of interviews to talk about numbers, but numbers I think are illustrative and helpful in certain instances. We cover 10 counties. We know we need to develop about 110 million meals every year in order to make sure that everybody in that 10-county area who is in need of food has food. Last year we provided about 40 million meals. So we've got a bit of a gap there, right? We've got a task ahead of us. That's one of the reasons why we're so excited about our partnership with you, as you all can help us in that regard. There is enough food for us to recover. It always comes back to resource. And resource for us generally has to do with time, talent, treasure, the ability of folks to invest in our mission, help us get more refrigerated trucks, help us get more folks to donate food, help us have more volunteers.
To help, and they want to figure out how. So this is a place where they can plug in and be able to actually provide a lot of assistance.
It is, and let me highlight, I think, something else that, and maybe that illustrates that story best. About 3 or 4 years ago, several USF students approached us and said, we'd really like to be involved in hunger relief. It's something that we feel is near and dear to our heart. And so that really played itself out in a couple of different ways. One is that we had students start to come and volunteer with us. That led to them creating what they called a Feeding Tampa Bay organization on the campus of USF. The outcome of that, which was Feedable, which is the opening of food relief opportunities for any students that may run into a physical challenge in their week or month or during their scholastic year. The great opportunity was developed by students, led by students, created by students. And so it is a great place for folks that really have a desire to participate. And what I love about the USF culture is they allow us and allow the students there to participate with each other in some really unique and different ways. We're one of the few campuses here in Florida, USF is, that actually has a location for kids that may be hungry. And that's a wonderful thing. I would love to have said we started that. We didn't. Students did. We just helped them.
That is fantastic. That was one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about, the fact that I believe it was September that Feedable opened.
Yep.
And what does that mean, that we sort of need to have a place for students to be able to get food on campus? When I was in college, we ate ramen noodles, but there wasn't this kind of need. at this level. And so what are some of the underlying reasons for that?
Well, I think, a university like USF, I'm sure, does everything they can to extend the greatest amount of opportunity, whether it's scholarships, associated services that go along with that. So I think it's important to understand that there isn't an issue on USF's campus because of USF. There's an issue because there are issues in the community, and those folks that are in the community show up on USF's campus. And so it's critical to understand that distinction. I don't ever want there to be a perception that somehow this is caused by university. This is life finding itself on the university campus. And so that's a critical distinction that I think folks need to understand. The good news is that, again, USF and the students and Feeding Tampa Bay said, well, let's look past all that and let's find a way to make sure that these folks are fed. Because no matter what, the most important thing for them is the ability to become educated. As you and I both know, education is the gateway to a life that we would all dream about. If food relief helps them through that process, that's exactly what we should be doing. And I'm thrilled and pleased and impressed that USF would allow us to do that, and more importantly, would allow students to lead an effort of that type.
That is fantastic. Another thing I've been finding in my service learning classes is there's sort of a bleed through where at one point service learning was viewed as a way for privileged kids to learn about what was happening in the community. And here, there's a decrease in the stigma where students are able to talk about how these things are impacting them.
Yes, and I think you also highlighted something that's important, is USF, like every other campus in the United States, has a broad variety of people on their campus. They have folks that come from privilege and folks that come from very difficult circumstances. But it's the collection of all of those kids together that are creating the opportunities. So if I go back to the origination of this program, we had a gentleman that started it that has since gone on to medical school. George, and so great, he's pursuing his life. I happened to volunteer. We had a 24-hour sort-a-thon, I guess about a month and a half ago, and I volunteered at the shift where we had several of your students with us. One of whom that says she volunteers at the Feedable store, but she also takes food from the store because she needs it.
That's wonderful.
It is. And it's wonderful that there are both groups of people that are invested and involved in the health and welfare of the student body. I think for all of us, when you look at any kind of assistance program, to use that term, they work best when everybody is committed to it and involved in it and aware of it, no matter the economic strata, no matter the background, the origin, all of those things. It works best when everybody kind of puts all that other stuff aside and says, let's collaborate, let's find a way, let's do something different.
One of the things I loved when I last spoke with you was that you said that at your conference of all the different food banks across the country, they couldn't wait to get the result of the backpack program.
Yes.
So I thought maybe you could talk about why that was so important to so many of the food banks around the country.
Well, the good news about the food banking network to which we belong, there are 200 of us across the United States, and we all are invested in the same fundamental outcome, which is the nourishment of the body, which leads to the nourishment of the mind, the soul, which creates opportunity for folks to go forward. I think no greater place is that important than in the lives of children. I think all of us have this sense that if we can invest here, we can materially change the circumstances further down the line. And so, first and foremost, I think we all have a sense that, one, children didn't deserve to be in this place, but number two, if we can get to them early enough and provide the nutrition that they need, the opportunities and possibilities for them to graduate from your campus 18 or 22 years later is what we're working towards. For all of us, the greatest challenge facing children, for all food banks, the greatest challenge facing children is in particular weekend and summer hunger. During the school year, most kids have access to food at school, particularly kids who are struggling financially. But on the weekends and over the summer, they don't have access. So we've developed programs that allow us to get to kids, the backpack programs, different feeding programs over the weekend. All food banks across the United States are struggling with this issue. What Dr. Himmelgreen's study will help us understand, what Dr. Wright's study will help us understand is how do we best do this? What are the outcomes? What are the delivery mechanisms? what does this change for children? It's also helping us understand what's happening inside the home. These programs started out to say we're going to give this particular child a backpack, but what we now know is that food is feeding the family, not just the child.
Mhm.
And so it's helped us understand far better what's happening. Those are all data points, data-driven behaviors that we can then start to adjust accordingly. So whether that works in Tampa, Florida, it also works in Montana, it works in New York City, it works in Los Angeles, California. Those are all data points that we can take back to folks and say, look, an investment here pays off here.
Well, we are so delighted to be a part of this, and I saw USF Research That Matters out on your front over there, so we're very, very delighted that we were able to help in this way. Is there anything else you can think of that you need from USF or other ways that we could be helpful that students can help out?
Well, I think from a student perspective, what we would want to continue to say is we have avenues available to get involved with food relief, and we would love to have you all continue to do that. I think we call upon you for volunteer opportunities, we call upon you for a variety of different things. We'd love to have the students still invested and involved with us. We, again, going back to Feedable, that started as a student idea. We'd love to take credit for it, but it wasn't. It was a student that said, I have a will and I have an idea and let's make this happen. Secondarily, I think that for us, as I said before, USF is the flagship university in our community. And often where you go, the rest of us go. And we're really excited about the partnerships we have today and the partnerships that we're looking for moving forward that will really help us set not only policy here in Tampa Bay, help us understand from a research perspective, help us understand from an application perspective, but those results are also translatable across the entirety of the United States. There aren't that many food banks and universities that are collaborating to say, how do we really attack the issue of hunger? And USF's leadership in this regard has been huge for us and will continue to be huge for us.
Well, we appreciate having community partners like you who really understand why evidence-based research is important and just having student assistance as well. So we're thrilled about that.
Evidence-based research is the underpinning of all substantial change for us. There's a huge difference between saying, I'd like to feed someone versus saying, if we feed someone, here's an outcome.
Well, thank you so much. This was a great opportunity.
We appreciate you being here and highlighting our work together.
You're welcome. Thank you.